Take you back now to the Olivenhout-Bosch area in Centurion. I'm going to Mangoba. Mangoba, I hope you can hear me. We've seen some stone throwing in a short while from the live visuals. We've seen the police moving in. What is exactly happening now, Mangoba?
Well, certainly, Pradan, you can see the tensions really getting high here at Olivenhout-Bosch as members of the taxi drivers are clashing with the police. Of course, you recall that they had been moved from blocking the R55, and this is where they've moved now on the side of the road where they were still blocking this particular stretch of road. So just a short while ago, they tried to block one of the vehicles, and of course, police forced to come in. They're trying now to disperse these taxi drivers who simply refuse to move out of the way. So we've seen them throwing some stones as well as bottles at the police, and police, of course, retaliating by firing rubber bullets. So as we can imagine now, Praten, it's quite tense here on the ground. The community members have also come out. They are looking at what is happening here, unfolding here on the street. So at this particular moment, the police are moving in. They're trying to keep those taxi drivers away, and they're trying to disperse them from the scene here to ensure that there's a free flow of traffic in this particular area. They have, of course, opened up the R55. The traffic is moving there. But on this particular stretch, this is where the drivers are now refusing to leave this area. So we've seen a back and forth in terms of the police firing those rubber bullets, and also the taxi drivers also throwing stones, also pelting police with bottles as well. So it's quite a tense situation here. But of course, police are now moving in their numbers to try and contain the situation.
You know, what I'm trying to understand, you said you yourself earlier, Emmanuel, you tried to speak as ENCA to the taxi operators, and they didn't want to speak. They were, in fact, angry, upset that you were talking to them. From what you can establish, why are they so belligerent this morning in that particular area of Tshwane? Why would they be insisting on this standoff that is so tense between themselves and the police in the area?
Well, but then, I mean, it's not clear at this point why they've resorted to violence. Of course, this is synonymous with most taxi strikes that we've seen. It always somehow ends up in violence. But, I mean, speaking to Santaco yesterday, they did say that this will be a peaceful demonstration, in fact, calling on their members not to engage in any acts of violence. So the scenes that we're seeing here in Tshwane this morning, of course, speaking quite the opposite of what Santaco had said will happen. They have condemned, of course, these acts of violence alongside the police, as well as the MMC or the MEC for transport here in Gauteng, Jacob Mamula, who also said that, condemning the violence that we saw earlier on. So at this particular point, it's not clear why Tshwane has resorted to these violent scenes, but certainly not only here in Olivenhout-Bosch that we've heard of similar incidents. Also, if you move towards Lodium, if you move towards Mabopane on the R80, the M17, those roads are also affected with some of those taxi drivers taking to the streets, blocking the streets. So we saw earlier on also while driving here that many of the vehicles had been stopped and many people unable to get to where they were going. Trucks were also stopped. So at this particular point, I guess we'll have to hear from Santaco, and if we can get a chance perhaps to speak to some of these taxi drivers, just to speak to them on why it is that they've resorted to violence and why it is that they really don't want to be any movement here on the streets.
Thank you very much, Mangoba Mkhunu, watching and tracking that developing story there on the R55 in the Olivenhout-Bosch area of Centurion in Tshwane.